Go-Go Dancer is a video that, of course, was Prince's idea of having Carmen pole dance, basically. This girl is a star. She was kind of willing to do anything. She was dressed in all these fabulously scantily clad outfits, big hair, great makeup.
Carmen and her band joined the tour and opened for us in the Netherlands and Germany. They showed her video for Go-Go Dancer before her set. The reviews weren't good. Prince wasn't happy with the audience reaction. Carmen went home, and at the end of the Diamonds and Pearls tour, Lori and Rabia were let go too.
We have different stories.
Prince? Who's Prince?
She's a stand-in for Diamond. There was another Diamond who actually looked a lot more like me and was really a cooler person too.
Yeah, they picked me up this morning,
she got
taught
a
me
different
the
job, so she had to go, and then they found her today here on the streets. She does look like me though, doesn't she?
People can think whatever they want about Carmen Electra, but she's one of the only women I ever saw involved with Prince on that level that was respectful of everybody else the whole time.
Had to happen, was all Prince said about it to me. But I'm going to ask Morris to join the MPG.
We knew going into the Diamonds and Pearls tour that Rosie was going to be leaving. So that changed everything. Her voice was so distinctive, and like his heart probably sank. She was ours. I've given you the biggest stage you could possibly have in the world, and now you're going. She was just like, Prince, you know, I'm not getting any younger. I can't wait forever. You know, and she's watching Carmen Electra's record come out, and meanwhile it's like, okay, Prince.
When Morris Hayes came in to replace Rosie Gaines on keyboard, I missed her ballsy vocals.
For all intents and purposes, as long as Rosie was around, it was almost all gravy. When he had to face the fact that she was moving on, she was going, something in him started to emerge, you know. You know, but Rosie had her own ambitions and things she wanted to accomplish in life.
It has been difficult selling myself as a female who could play everything, because I went from keyboards to guitar to drums to bass, saxophone, flute, and actually the only thing that I can't play is violin. I'm a musician, a writer, and producer.
The 1992 Heritage Award.
To Stephanie, Patty, and Rosie, God's living proof that they're angels, thank you. You know, sometimes I'm criticized for going too fast and trying to say too much. I just want y'all to know that I try only to speak when spoken to. With your continued love and support, I can speak a little bit more. Thank you very much.
Yeah, times get hard. And by the time he got involved in the whole thing with Warner Brothers, no one could blame him for being angry.
You have to kind of laugh a little bit when I hear them talk, because they're doing the same thing behind the scenes, you know. But the albums that we were supposed to do, we did about 5 albums together. We locked them up in the vault and wouldn't release them. So of course we had problems about that. My records just kind of got shelved. That wasn't a good experience. But the album was good. He gave me some good play. I have to say he gave me more than he gave any other artist. Went to Motown after I left Prince.
You can sit, you know, on the one hand go, he's holding her back. And it's like, no. It's hard to negotiate territory like that. Like, you want to give people what they need to survive, but not at your own detriment. Prince was in a very interesting position. Motown offered her $1 million deal. She's supposed to say no? Unfortunately, that was the year they dropped Conversation Piece by Stevie Wonder. And so the entire Motown label was devoted to pushing that along. She got overlooked.
She was signed to Epic at the same time Thriller was released. It was so big. It was just an international instant hit. Epic didn't expect it to go that big. They didn't have enough people to handle Michael and all the rest of their artists. People who were signed to Epic at the same time, they were shelved. My mom ended up getting shelved. She could have been in Michael's band. What a lot of people don't know. Mom was a musician. She could have easily played for him in his band, but she chose Prince because she didn't feel like Michael would give her any front face. Like, he would keep her in the back. She knew Prince would not do that to her. So that's why she chose to go with Prince. She actually had a choice.
People used to try to compare him to Michael. Prince was determined to get those big record contracts, just like him and Jack.
The Jackson 5 started their career at Motown. Hit songs back-to-back. ABC, The Love You Save, and I Want You Back. In the late 70s, Michael and his brothers worked their already perfected style into some of the best music of the time. Off the Wall was Michael's first solo album with Quincy Jones. The success pushed Michael to dazzling heights. The total sales of the album Thriller have exceeded 40 million copies, the largest selling album of all time. Each new work from Michael was more successful than the last.
Madonna Mania was right around the corner. Only 6 months into her recording career, with a hit album and her first pop hit Holiday climbing the charts, Madonna had revitalized the dance music scene. Vision Quest spawned the #1 single Crazy For You, which increased Madonna's exposure even further. With 2 movies, 2 albums, and 4 top 10 records to her credit, Madonna launched the Like a Virgin tour, sold out to 355,000 screaming fans. And she had a look all her own. Madonna's next album, True Blue, spawned 4 top 10 hits, including 3 #1 singles. The new songs were thought-provoking and controversial. Despite the controversy, in May of 1987, Madonna delivered the simultaneous release of the movie, album, and world tour of Who's That Girl? The Material Girl was big business.
Madonna and Michael Jackson have signed very, very big deals with their record companies. $30 million, $60 million deals. And Prince sees himself as a greater artist than Michael Jackson or Madonna.
Prince. It's hard to keep track of all of Prince's accomplishments. He's more than just a pop star. He's a writer, a producer, a movie star, movie director, and Prince's live concert movie, Sign of the Times, hit the movie theaters. He not only stars in it, he directed it too, just like his other 2 movies, Under the Cherry Moon and Purple Rain. On top of all this, he started his own recording label, Paisley Park, and his own 65,000 square foot film studio complex. Everything a show business mogul needs. And he's helped launch other acts. Sheila E., The Time, producers Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis.
He's personally had a lot of top hits over the past 10 years. And he's also written or co-written a lot of them for other artists, sometimes under his own name and sometimes under pen names. Sugar Walls by Sheena Easton, he wrote that as Alexander Nevermind. Stand Back by Stevie Nicks. Then there was I Feel For You by Shaka Khan. Glamorous Life by Sheila E. Jungle Love by The Time as Jamie Starr. Manic Monday by The Bangles as Christopher. Kiss by Art of Noise featuring Tom Jones. Nothing Compares to You, the #1 song of 1990 for Sinead O'Connor. Then a song. And when you put all those hits together, you really begin to see and hear what an original and gifted musical dynamo he really is.
Unlike Michael Jackson and Madonna, you can leave Prince by himself in the studio and he will walk out with a hit record. He's built his own studio, he is a self-contained world, he can churn out hit records, so Prince wants to be paid a lot of money.
Janet Jackson has left A&M Records to sign with the British-based Virgin label for a sum rumored to be between $40 and $50 million. Virgin chief Richard Branson likened her to a Rembrandt that had suddenly become available.
Her contract was up with A&M Records, and so all the major labels wanted Janet at that point. She became the highest paid recording artist ever.
The artist getting ready to go into contract renegotiation, it certainly benefited him to have a more commercial successful record, and Diamonds and Pearls gave him that.
The reason you make music is because you got something inside you that you need to express that words aren't going to do. Prince was like lightning. He liked to stay out there, teetering on that edge. Just how far can I take this? And that was Prince.
There was probably competition with other artists and wanting to be the first this or the first that. In his head, that's not uncommon. People always like to have some sort of notches in their belt. Nothing against Madonna. Wonderful music, etc. But, she is a very, very smart marketer. She knows when to deliver what.
When RCA Records signed Elvis Presley back in 1956, they paid $35,000, unheard of at the time. Here's an unheard of figure for our times, $100 million. That's the deal Prince cut with Warner Brothers Records.
He wanted the headline to be $100 million deal. And he became so fixated on waking up to see that headline in the newspapers.
$10 million each for 6 albums, the rest in royalties. More than Michael Jackson, more than Madonna. And Prince gets a title, Corporate Vice President.
In Prince's case, he's not a normal person. He's going to look at you cross-eyed if you say, well, you know, there's a recession going on and this and that and the other. It's like, well, so what? My music is whatever, and people will want it. That's part of why some artists are so much more successful than others, because they know how to read and they bend to what is going on.
Madonna is worth 60 million. His is worth 100 million. It's not. It's actually not.
He'd had huge commercial success with Diamonds and Pearls, and he seemed poised to continue it.
We inked a $100 million deal with Warner Brothers, and that turned out to be a little less than desirable.
$100 million did? The whole deal?
Yeah.
What all that meant?
Yeah.
There are articles immediately at that moment in the press saying, it's worth up to $100 million.
I know there's people out there, oh, it never really was. No, it was. That $100 million deal was worth more than $100 million. Part of that deal was $30 million of funding for Paisley Park Records. That $30 million was going to allow us to actually hire a staff of, record people that were totally somewhat independent of Paisley, but they were still answering to me and to Paisley. They were part of the Paisley group.
I know these people working with Prince are saying it's a $100 million deal, but it's only worth $100 million if each one of his next 5 records sells 5 million copies. Now, Diamonds and Pearls had sold 5.8 million copies. So he had to keep at that level. You're going to sell about 30% less. 30% less at 5.8 would be under 5 million. He's not going to get his $100 million. He's probably going to end up owing the record company money, because all that money, it's a loan.
That's where he learned it from. With Tony Lamont, the sad part, other than the fact that he died in a motorcycle accident, was that he died in debt to Paisley Park for like $200,000 because he was remaking that record. Yes.
Wow.
He was never gonna get out from under that unless that record went like mega. The artist who had the best chance of going all the way was Tony Lamont. Levi was involved in producing Tony Lamont's first record.
He was kind of on this thing. It was funky. Tony was raw. If I played you these demos, they were nasty funk. It was like where I went with Let Love Rule, but it was more on the funk side.
Levi was like, man, you should have heard what we did with Tony. He said, man, that was gypsy funk. He would have beat Lenny to the punch and would have been funky. And it would have been more R&B than that. They worked on the record with Tony, and then they finally let Prince hear it. It's like, you're not putting this out. You're not gonna have me fighting my own imprint. He finished his solo record. I thought he had. They made Tony go back to the drawing board with David Gamson from Scritti Politti. Prince sent him back to the drawing board, and he spent whatever money on top of what he had spent. He was forced to remake that record. Well, Prince had to turn on the juice. He's like, I just lost a star player. I gotta go back to being Prince. So he went back to being Prince. Prince was in a hurry to put things together and get that record finished. And as soon as we got home, the plan just rolled out. And we had just gotten off tour. So it was just like, I think I was home for 2 days and we were right into it.
How do you work together with Prince?
Man, there's a lot of different ways. Sometimes he'll say, hey, you got some music. I'll go home and I'll cook up something and bring it back, and he'll write some lyrics and put a melody on it. Or sometimes he may have something and ask me to finish it. So, and sometimes we do it as a whole band, like a sound check where we jam and come up with something and go back home and record it.
We knew that Rosie was going. It affected what Prince was trying to draw from the group. I think he was also trying to prove that we could keep moving without her. Even Sexy MF is like, Prince kind of just banged out a rhythm on top of the piano, and I kept experimenting until we both found something that was kind of cool.
Prince was the first guy I ever dated who actually confirmed my secret suspicions that I might be somewhat intelligent. Prince one day looked at me, he says, you really are smart.
Like when we did Sexy MF.
It's funny because I needed money for college that semester. So Prince said, well, I have this video I want you to do. And he's like, and I'll pay you. I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, crawling on couches, purring. There you go. It was crawling, baby. Crawling and purring.
after I left Paisley Park and went on my own path, we were still dating. I had already left Paisley Park when that video was recorded, and Prince actually asked me to come and record the Sexy MF video. I was Troy Breyer's body double, and kind of bent over with the thong. That's all me. That's my body. But Prince said he wanted me to be the body double because he liked my body better than hers.
I used to make up this term, we some sexy mother, right? And I used to do that at the end of the show and play around. But when we got in the studio, we got into this groove. He said, all right, Levi, put some chicken grease on it. I did my thing. Everybody, the groove was cooking. And then he hit a break. He said, you know what you've been singing on the road? Sing that right here.
I like that. It's a new thing. Sing this. That's what I'm talking about. What we're doing in the middle one time. Boys, stand up, please. I like it. I like it.
The new power generation is the blackest band Prince ever had.
Because he can play anything, but I think he wanted to experiment. He allowed us to kind of do what we do.
He just found a band that could work together in a certain kind of way and help him to manifest his ideas.
And he also wanted to grow into a different kind of musician. And there were a lot of sessions, the Morris can tell you, that we all put the songs together with him.
Yes, that's how Prince preferred to record most of that music. It just was happening, always. That's how strong the kinetic energy was. And Prince often benefited from the fact that we were so tight, Borrowing is flattery, and everybody does it. I've asked to call him a master thief. We all are in one way, shape, or form. I'm not really singling him out. I'm just saying he was really good at it because he knew what to take from and how to make things work, man. And would work on it till it was unrecognizable to anyone else. If you talk about songwriting, yeah, it would have been nice for him to include us in that way, but he didn't. Really, he didn't have to do that. As a writer, no. And again, that's something you can get salty about things like that. But the reality is, when I walked into that environment, I knew who I was working for and what the circumstances could be. It just is what it is. If you put your hands down and play something, you might be giving away your intellectual property, let's say. No matter how you slice it, he was a true Gemini. It's funny. This is the other thing I was going to say, man. When I look back now, I don't know for a fact, but I really think that Prince was bipolar. But he would just change a lot, like from one moment to the next sometimes. Different levels of trusting or not trusting people around.